Hi, I'm Malcolm Torres. Welcome to the Sea Stories and Science Fiction YouTube channel. Tonight, I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes about a book series called The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. It's a 4-book series, and I'm not going to give you any spoilers, so there won't be any spoilers in this. Everything I'm going to tell you, you would know just by reading the little blurbs on the dust jacket or reading the first, couple paragraphs of the first book. This has been a widely acclaimed, award-winning series. It's won the Hugo Award, the Nebula Award, and several others. It's been a runaway bestseller on the New York Times and USA Today. And you see comments around on the internet and on book reviews. People say, I love Murderbot. It's kind of a thing. And I have to say it myself. I love Murderbot. And I'm just going to tell you some of the reasons that I like the books. And I think you'll see that when you hear these, you'll want to read them. So the first thing to know is Murderbot, the main character. This character is a security unit. It is a robot with some human parts. And what happens is that he has kind of a dark past. He had a kind of a mysterious situation where he killed a bunch of people, like 50-something people, while it was on a deployment with a crew of people on a planet doing a mining operation. And something happened and it killed a bunch of people. So you understand from the beginning that the Murderbot, this robot cyborg, is very dangerous. And he had his mind erased, and now he's on a new mission on a different planet with this another group of people who are doing some mapping and some mining exploration on a planet. And it's set in the far future. But right away, what you find out is that Murderbot has hacked its governor unit. So it's gaining consciousness. And you go along with the story and you learn about Murderbot and the experience that Murderbot is having as it gains consciousness. Another reason to like Murderbot is that Murderbot can hack anything, from security systems to drones to interplanetary spaceships. It's got this super artificial intelligence that it uses to outwit all other types of kind of robotic or droids and things like that. One of the things that I really liked about Murderbot is a little bit like Terminator, but less of a robot and more of a person with a personality, and really strong, lots of built-in weapons, made out of high-tech alloys, plus has human components like some human skin and some human limbs, but built out with modifications like a little bit of an exoskeleton, and looks a lot like a human being. There are a few really peculiar behaviors that Murderbot has. One is that it figures out that it can download and binge like hundreds of episodes of old TV shows, which are hundreds of years in the future, but Murderbot learns how to download these things and is watching them episode after episode and is learning about human behavior and human interaction by binge watching these shows. And that's one of the reasons why we relate with Murderbot, is that we like to binge watch shows too. And here's this futuristic cyborg robot, artificial intelligence, gaining kind of a human consciousness. And what it really wants to do is binge watch like soap operas and shows like that. Another reason why you are enamored to Murderbot is that Murderbot claims to hate human beings. It constantly is talking about what a nuisance they are and how much trouble they get themselves into. And as a security unit who continues to go about doing his job, or her job, it's a non-gender robot. And I'm laughing about this because it's really kind of fun to read the books and to go along with Murderbot throughout the story. Murderbot claims to hate human beings and talks a lot about how annoying they are because it's a security unit and it's always having to help the humans get out of trouble. Like they get themselves into battles or they get themselves attacked by these alien creatures, they get hunted down by some corrupt corporate entity, and Murderbot is there to, literally defend them with all of its weapons, or to go and do detective work and try to help them to, keep them alive. So even though Murderbot claims to hate humans and say that they're annoying, Murderbot's a real hero because Murderbot is always trying to protect humans at the same time. So you see this sort of internal conflict that Murderbot has. It's very ironic, and it's kind of humorous. Across the books, and the books are All Systems Red, Artificial Condition, Rogue Protocol, and Exit Strategy. Across the 4 books, and each of the books is only about 150 pages each. So they're a quick read, and each book has its own plot, but they all fit together into an overarching story, which I won't spoil for you, other than to say that Murderbot has a past that has been kind of erased, but Murderbot kind of remembers it. And then as you go into the story and into the 4 episodes, like Murderbot wants to go back and figure out what happened. Plus it also wants to go back and do some detective work on another crime that's kind of playing out throughout the 4 books. So Murderbot is a bit of a security unit, plus it's a bit of a Terminator kind of style killer, also a stowaway on spaceships, and a detective. So it's kind of playing all these different roles, and it fits together very nicely. The final reason why I think you will like Murderbot, the character, very much, is that Murderbot has this sense of humor. It's very dry, kind of deadpan, understated sense of humor that, you see the irony and kind of the smart aleck sort of attitude that Murderbot has. Murderbot's a bit of a teenager, if you will. So those are multiple reasons why you will like the character Murderbot. Now, the other thing that I think is really interesting about the way the story is written is that there's a really nice balance. There's 2 real main things going on. One is, as we've talked about, is Murderbot's this robot, cyborg, artificial intelligent creature, machine, humanoid, that is developing consciousness unbeknownst to the corporation that runs it and controls it. And so it's doing this secretly, and you're very enamored to that, and you're very involved in Murderbot's internal life. It's like its thoughts and its kind of nascent feelings that it's having, and the plot that it's making in its brain, and its sense of humor. So you're really caught up in that. And a lot of the reviews, a lot of really great sci-fi writers have written blurbs and comments about Murderbot, saying they just love Murderbot for those reasons. So the character is great, and this internal life that it's having. But the other part of the story that's really good, and I think that Martha Wells does a great job with this, is the pacing of the action throughout the story. There's a lot of fights, there's a lot of interplanetary travel, there's a lot of sort of these corrupt corporations and backstory. There's fights. Murderbot gets in fights with drones and other security units. So there's a lot of like swashbuckling kind of escapes and battles on spaceships and at portals and way stations where ships come together and land. It has a little bit of a kind of a Star Wars-y kind of effect, or a Star Wars-y kind of plot where there's these escapes and things like that. And so the good balance between the internal life of Murderbot and the external action that's taking place throughout the story. And I guess the last thing out of the 3 things that I wanted to mention was just the structure. Like, it's pretty interesting that the books were sold as these little, 150-page books, and each story stands on its own. Like, you read it and you just gobble it up in a short period of time, 2 or 3 sittings, 4 or 5 hours. You've read the book, and you're like, wow, that whole episode. And then, there's another similar sized piece, and there is a story that kind of carries across all 4, and it fits together into a package. So I've heard and I've seen that there are 2 more books, and there's my understanding is that Martha Wells has a contract with Tordotcom to publish several more of these books in the future. But so 3 reasons why I think you would like Murderbot. One is the main character, Murderbot himself or herself or itself, is just fascinating, a lot of fun to ride along with. The second is the balance between the internal life of Murderbot achieving this kind of consciousness and just getting to know Murderbot as it gets it to know itself, and then the balance between that and the external action, which is really kind of action-packed. And then the third is because it's kind of fun to read the short books in these series like that. I highly recommend this. I think it's a great series, and it's won Hugo Award, Nebula Award, New York Times, USA Today bestseller, and getting a lot of accolades across the sci-fi world. So great job, Martha Wells, and looking forward to reading the future books when they come out. Thank you for joining me. My name is Malcolm Torres, and I have this YouTube channel, so I would ask you to subscribe and hit the thumbs up and leave me a comment there. But also, I have a podcast that I do. Every week, I'm putting out several short stories, some original material of my own, and classics. And then also, I'm sourcing new contemporary sea stories and science fiction to put on the podcast. So check me out, the Sea Stories and Science Fiction YouTube channel and podcast. Thank you for joining me.